Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a big video here that's probably going to be a little lengthy. I don't know if it'll be as long as the review from yesterday for Dragon Ball Super, where I had so much to say about it, but I have a lot to say about this review, this game, whatever, too. It's a game review for a game that I looked forward to when I first heard about it. I was one of the last people on the planet to even know that this was coming out because I hadn't followed games forever, and I started getting back into games recently, buying old stuff that I had missed on 360 and PS3, or even PS4, Xbox One, picking up a lot of stuff, especially horror titles, because horror titles, as you can tell with the PS2, have gotten insanely expensive now. Like, Haunted Grounds, I think, is one that, like, it looks cool, I would love to play it, but I'm not willing to pay $300 for that, just for one game. Anyway, the game I'm talking about here is one that I have a big history with its previous entries, and I can't wait to talk about those in a moment. I have them all sitting right here off screen. Big fan of the series. A big fan of both of these brands, as a matter of fact. The game I'm talking about here is the Nintendo Switch release of Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Now, I did not play this on Xbox One, nor did I play it on PS5 or Xbox Series S or X, which I don't even own either of those, or PS5. Didn't play it on any of the newer consoles, but the Switch, to me, is a fantastic console, and I figured like this would be the kind of game that I would love for the Switch, because I can play it anywhere in the house. I can play it in here, where I don't have my dock at. I can play it up on the TV, which, by the way, this game is good on handheld with the handheld version of the Switch, but on TV is really where it takes the cake for. To me, this may have even looked better than what it already looked like on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, whatever, PS4, PS5, all of that probably would have looked better than what this was, but it was beautiful looking on this game. On the Switch, I mean. The Switch really brought out a lot of cool things about it, and to me it was nice because it felt like one of those portable titles I used to have, like, well, I still have, and I still don't play that much anymore. Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories from Grand Theft Auto on the PSP, PS Vita games like Call of Duty Black Ops for PSP, or PS Vita. I love a lot of handheld stuff. I love the Game Boy, I love the DS, I just bought a DS Lite recently for my vacation coming up. I'm a big fan of handheld stuff. I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole too much, but this is the kind of game I can only imagine what it was like on the other kind of newer consoles like the PS5 and stuff. As I said, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga was one of the biggest fucking disappointments I've ever experienced in my life, and there are very few things to redeem it for me, but I think by the end of the video you will be surprised by my opinions on it, and some of the things that I enjoyed about it. Now, I want to make a couple of things set up front. As I said, I'm a big fan of the previous games, pretty much almost all of them, as a matter of fact. I have a lot of context for that, but I'll get that in a moment. Number two, this, even though it was massively disappointing, I will talk more about that in a moment as well. I did not hit 100% on this, and I try to typically with LEGO games, not all of them. I've started many, never finished many, but I typically love them enough that I want to complete them, and some games in the LEGO brand, which I love, even though I'm a big Star Wars guy, this is like the first LEGO game that I really, really loved. I had other games I enjoyed, like a LEGO soccer game, a LEGO racing game, I believe. But I loved the first LEGO Star Wars right here. This is my original copy from release before Revenge of the Sith came out. I think it was the same year, or maybe the year before that it came out. But I loved this. This game came out in 2022, and it took me over a year to get to where I could. As of last night, when I finally was like, I'm done. I did all like 140 side quests, already completed like the main story. I decided, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do any more shit. I don't want to replay the awful story mode missions, which I'll talk more about in a moment. But I did all the things I wanted to do. I unlocked the characters that I wanted to unlock out of the 300 character roster. 300 characters. We'll talk about that later too. I probably should have taken a little bullet list of all the things I wanted to talk about with this bullshit, but I did not. I hit 75% last night, which was kind of the place where I was like, I'm done. I don't care anymore about any more puzzles. The puzzles aren't super incredible in here, but they're pretty good. This is basically just a retelling of the 9 Skywalker-focused movies. Not Rogue One, not Solo, not Mandalorian, which is probably one of the most popular things in recent years since Disney bought Star Wars, even though I've heard a lot of bad about Season 3. I am a mixed fan when it comes to the sequels. I obviously am a huge fan of the prequels and the original trilogy. I love those movies. They have their flaws, but I love them deeply. When Force Awakens came out, everybody loved it. Everybody did. I didn't really hear much of any kind of negativity online, despite what anybody tells you. Most people I talked to, most people you saw online, loved the kind of refreshing restart. And we were surprised by some of the things, like Finn, like Rey. What direction are we going to go with them? And then The Last Jedi came out. And I've ranted about this in previous videos. Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy took a fucking dump on Star Wars. They killed Star Wars. It's permanently dead from now on. No matter what comes out with the title Star Wars on it, it's fucking dead. Then they made a film to recount with J.J. Abrams to rebut Rian Johnson, who made Last Jedi, called The Rise of Skywalker. I think, and this is a controversial opinion, and I'm currently getting ready to start reviewing the Star Wars films on the channel because of how much I wanted to rewatch them after playing this. I personally think The Rise of Skywalker, for me, as messy as it is one of the best films, if not the best film, of the sequel trilogy. I like it a lot, and I love some of the things like with Kylo, and there are things I would change, obviously, like the finale with Kylo. I would change very surely certain things in it. I think Rey was improved a lot in that film, even though there are some things that were fucking stupid to do. Like she's the embodiment of the Jedi. By the way, this is contaminated with Rey is a Skywalker bullshit. No, Rey identifies as a Skywalker. There's a very big difference between that. When you start the menu on this game, they're kind of like, it's kind of like the original Star Wars poster of having Luke hold up the lightsaber, right? There's like a mountain, and then there's like Rey at the top of the mountain, and she says one of the lines, I believe it's from Force Awakens, I believe, and she says, I want someone to show me my place in this world. And every time it starts up, I laugh, because of course you would start the game with, I want someone to show me my place. Why the fuck is Rey at the top of that mountain? Why is it not Luke? Or Anakin? Or both? Darth Vader and Luke? No, you have Rey at the top, and then Luke and Anakin are like kind of over here, behind Darth Maul. Whatever. It's annoying. Every time I start the game up, it's annoying. Another thing, too, I have to tell you, I don't really know how long I played this game. I did not realize that you were supposed to turn and close the apps, turn them off, whatever, before you turn your Switch off, otherwise it just kind of sits idle. So at this current moment, I have 160 hours playing this game, which I did not play for 160 hours. I would say out of the 75% I tried to get, and by the way, it took me over a year to finish this shit, because I hated the story mode so much. The adaptations of the 9 Skywalker films, everything from Phantom Menace all the way up to Rise of Skywalker, I hated the adaptation so much of that story, I'll get to that in a moment, that I kept starting, and then I would play like one movie, and then I would quit. And I did that ever since the game came out. I got this on like release week. I don't think it was release day, but within a couple of days of release, I got it, and I fucking hated it. It was so disappointing, dude. And there are more things to talk about in a moment, but was not happy with a lot of it. So, I got my 75% completion, and I'm vaguely proud of that, because this game is very much getting away from the typical LEGO Star Wars, or LEGO game in general, formula, kind of like the first LEGO Star Wars did. This got away from everything LEGO had done at that point, and this was revolutionary, not only for LEGO games, but just games in general. It was so fun as a platformer, as a puzzle game, all of that. It was just phenomenal, dude. And it blew me away. I still love it. I think this poster right here is one of the best posters for a LEGO or a Star Wars game ever created. Easily. I love it. I love it. I remember the trailers on TV for that game. Do I remember any trailers at all for this? No. I heard in passing this was coming out the week it came out, and I went ahead and bought it like that week, like I said. There was like promotion for this in other places, but not like anywhere that I watch things, like on YouTube or anything. I didn't see any kind of ads or anything for it. I started seeing videos pop up talking about this, and I was excited for it, because I didn't know it was coming out, and I was a fan of Rise of Skywalker, so I was like, oh, maybe they'll do something cool with this. And immediately put me off, because then I found out they fucking talk, still. LEGO Batman 2 introduced this, but then a lot of games would cheat, and they would take the dialogue of the real-life actors from the movies they were in, like Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, whatever, and they would put that into the game, and that was awful. Force Awakens did that. I'll show you my collection on that in a moment. I hated that shit. It feels so unnatural for the kind of humor they're trying to go for typically. But this was different. This is where they're talking, and kind of like LEGO Batman 2, they were really creating their own scripts. They were writing scripts for this to adapt those movies into whatever they wanted to do. And sometimes, not very often, but sometimes it would work. And they would have like the side quests in the game where you would just be walking around these massive maps. Talk about that more in a moment as well. I keep saying that, but there's a lot to say, like I said. Or I will say. Something like that. These massive maps have NPCs sitting around everywhere that are people just randomly doing things, like fishing. and you can talk to them, and it's fun, and I like it. You can't talk to everybody in the game, which I wouldn't really want to, but you could. It's kind of nice. I kind of enjoy that. But this is going away from the typical combat style and everything we had before on LEGO Star Wars, or LEGO games in general. It decided to go more like a third-person shooter mixed with an RPG, like a cyberpunk, or like something like that. It's still sci-fi, it's still sci-fantasy, whatever you want to call Star Wars in general as a brand. And I love the RPG elements. I'm still getting introduced to RPGs. I've played previous RPGs like JRPGs like Pokemon and a little bit of Final Fantasy on my Ouya years ago. That's an old console in case you guys didn't know what that was. It's OUYA. No one ever knows what the fuck I'm talking about. It was the first digital-only console that I've ever owned. And it was cool. I liked it. The controller was amazing. I thought the controller was one of the best controllers I'd ever had. But the game releases, it didn't make it very long. Anyway, let me go through my history of games here. Of course, I already talked about the OG that I have not reviewed on the channel. I think this is incredible. I have 2 copies of this game. One that came with my copy of the sequel game that I'd never played. Well, I played a little bit of it with a friend, my childhood best friend TC I talk about sometimes, but I never owned this game aside from my DS copy. And I recently played this for the first time ever, like all the way through, tried to 100% it, but it has that super story bullshit in here that no one likes and I think sucks, and I'm not going to sit through an hour and then fuck up and not be able to complete an entire movie in an hour for the gameplay. Can't use cheats? No, I'm good. I'm good. That one Empire mission? Yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to fly that speeder around in Hoth trying to wreck over and over again to try to be able to complete this in an hour. It's not going to happen. So screw it. I'm not going to do it. But this was amazing. I played this recently around the time, either right before or right after that Skywalker Saga came out, and pretty much beat the entire thing a few months back and loved every minute of it. I replayed the missions and the movies so many times to get all the mini kits and everything, and it just got better and better every single time I played those missions over and over again. Very much like this game. This was the first ever game that I 100% completed, and I loved it. I loved it so much, and I can't wait to go back one day and do it because the super story bullshit from this was not in the original game. These 2 are amazing, and like I said, I got a copy of the original game again when I bought this, and so I had to be careful, but this is my original copy for sure. I have it marked and everything. But the first game has the first 3 movies, even before Revenge of the Sith had come out, and then part 2 here has the original trilogy adapted. Personally, a lot of people think they should have started with the original trilogy. I disagree. I think that starting with the prequels was a better idea because the prequels were still new. There was a way to make money off of that, and I think it's one of the best Star Wars games I've ever played in my life. The humor, the comedy, everything in both of those games is absolutely wonderful. I love it deeply, and I have so much nostalgia for it. But playing the second game, I didn't play the console, and I played it a little bit with my friend on his PS2, but I never played it myself and owned it. I don't know why, I just never got around to it. And I loved what I played of it with my friend. And then I got it on DS, and I loved it on DS as well. Never completed it, but I loved it. I think I played all the movies, obviously, but I don't think I, 100%ed that game either. But it was incredible. It was an incredible game, and playing part 2 for the first time ever now, and then going back and sometimes playing the original LEGO Star Wars, the humor, the platforming, all of that, the puzzles, it is so great, dude. The puzzles aren't as complex as some of this Skywalker Saga game is, or sometimes has. It's not always super complicated, but some of them are fairly challenging, I'll give it that. To me, this new game has nothing on those old games. Eventually they were re-released. I recently bought this and showed it off in my game haul video from a couple of days ago. This is the Xbox 360 Complete Saga game. I haven't started this up yet. I think I might have played a mission when I put it in to make sure it worked. I bought it as a used copy, obviously for I think it was like 10 bucks, 9 bucks, something like that. I have this still with its box and everything on DS, and I love it. I think it's a great DS game, even better than Part 2 on DS from what I remember. And this game to me was so special. I've only played it on the Wii. I completed it entirely on my Wii many years ago, and it was such a good game, dude. Getting to swing around the Wii remote for the first time ever, and I think that was the first time a motion control had been used to control a lightsaber at all, no matter how basic it was. Having the sound of a lightsaber come out of that handle that you use for a controller on the old Wii was incredible. I loved that feeling, and I wish I had never gotten rid of my Wii. I had so many cool games for it, like The Grudge. And the really hard-to-find Grudge that I do own right now that I had to buy again for a very unfair price, if I'm being honest with you. Complete Saga, though, was incredible. It took these first 2 games that I just showed you, and it put it into one big 6-movie game, and people loved it. People still consider this the best ever Star Wars game, which to me is great, and I appreciate it, but it's kind of disrespectful to these old 2 games that were the OGs before it. But Complete Saga is another hell of a home run, dude. There wasn't much addition to it to be different from those first 2 games, but it was fairly decent. The hub world was different. There's a lot of really cool stuff in it that I really love a lot. Anyway, then we have a game that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't even think this had an actual, like, official release. Like, in the sense of, like, ads, promos, commercials on TV. I think I just read about it out of nowhere somewhere on the internet many years ago and found out it existed. I have a copy of this on 360 I bought many years ago, and for whatever reason I got to the Yoda mission on the game and it stopped working. That is LEGO Star Wars 3 for PS3 here. But again, I do have an Xbox 360 copy. Never could get it to work, but I started playing this. I managed to get pretty far into it so far. Have not completed the story, but I do really enjoy this. It's a little bit different, a little bit different in the sense of, like, it's a good game. It plays very well. It's beautiful looking, too. I love the Clone Wars TV show, which this is really focused on. But, like, the hub world and stuff, they're a little bit bigger than the usual hub worlds, but they also have, it's like all inside of a spaceship. At least where I'm at right now it is. And the kind of understanding of how to go from mission to play those is a little finicky. I don't know if I like it, but we'll get to that one day when I review this. But I love it. It's a really good game so far, aside from my complaint about the menu system. And then we have the next to most recent, well, I guess the most recent previous Skywalker Saga from 2015 or 2016. It had to be 2016. Force Awakens. I only have it on 3DS. I've never played it on a console, but I keep hearing that's how you have to play it, is on console. So I think I'm going to rebuy this. I get a bonus this week. I think it's this week or next week at work. Pretty sure it's this week, though. If I see this again at the store that I'm going to go to and blow all of my money at, not all of my bonus, but quite a bit of it at least, I will probably grab The Force Awakens for a console and play it for the first time ever on, like, Xbox One or something like that. But I remember the 3DS version being pretty solid for what it was. It didn't feel as full-fledged as something like, you know, these console versions of these other games, but I remember The Force Awakens on 3DS being surprisingly a big improvement over a lot of the 3DS LEGO games I had played, which was cool. I like that, especially when you look at, like, LEGO Marvel Superheroes and how it looks. It's really beautiful on a console, but I don't like the controls, whereas the 3DS version of LEGO Marvel Superheroes, I like the controls, but it's bullshit. You can't even get the final mission of the game unlocked until you complete 100% everything else. So it's like, what? But the control on that game, the viewpoint, the camera angle, all of that, I like a lot more there. Now we round back to the Skywalker Saga, though. I was so pumped for this, and this covers a lie, like I said. It's a lie. Rey is put up in the forefront of the game, and Rey is focused upon so much in this shitty-ass game. Well, it's not a shitty game. Let me set that back. My feelings about the horrible adaptations of 9 movies, that 8 of them I really, really love or enjoy or like even, was a slap in the face. The adaptation of this game for those movies, to me, was clearly put on the back burner. You can't even replay the entire cutscene from beginning to end of a movie that's shown here. A lot of the game, as you complete each mission of the game, or episode, whatever, as you complete each one within each movie, you can't go back and revisit every single cutscene. You only get to do what you get to play. Like if you're in the middle of a flying mission or something, you can only go back and revisit the cutscenes from that flying mission. People will argue, well, yeah, YouTube exists, though, go watch it there, you noob. I understand what you're saying, but you're a fucking idiot. Some people want to experience the story in the future and don't want to have to start a brand new game for a game they don't even really love, because most of the time between missions on this game, you are walking forever. Forever. I don't really agree with calling most games nowadays a walking simulator. That's used constantly for things like Death Stranding, which is probably fair there. Haven't played the game, but I've seen a lot, enough to know that you walk a lot in that game. But Skywalker Saga, to me, has a lot of a walking simulator thing. It's not like these original games where you can just say, yeah, I want to go to the next mission for this movie, for Revenge of the Sith, for Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace. You can't do that here. You have to walk from place to place to get to those, or fly from planet to planet, which is the next thing. The game, in the missions themselves, the missions are very disappointing. Like the actual missions, like whether you're fighting Count Dooku, whether you're flying a fucking spaceship, which most of these movies adaptations, the missions you're playing are flying on-rails mission game stuff, and I think it's awful. I think it's awful. I really mean that. I hate that about it. But the open world stuff, with all the horrible, cringy-ass humor adapted into those movies, and how basically no one actually dies in the Disney era of LEGO Star Wars, of all things. Yeah, if people get, like, stabbed, people that should die because they died in a movie like Qui-Gon Jinn, they don't. They just, like, get back up, and they could be in the next scene, and they're not. They just vanish, even though they didn't technically die. If you try to kill a civilian NPC in the game, they just reaffirm and, like, reassemble themselves, you know? Satisfying sound effect, but other than that, no, it's not that great. This is really weird about that, but it's humongous. When you get out of those story missions and you're actually wandering around trying to collect these things called Kyber bricks, which of course, in the new canon Star Wars lore, Kyber bricks are actually the Kyber crystal you put inside of a lightsaber. That's kind of nice. They're like these holographic looking bright blue crystalline Lego blocks that you have to collect. There are 1,200 of those in this game, and at this current moment I have like 1,005, I think, on my 75% completion. And again, the RPG element mixed with the puzzle solving stuff that's kind of basic because it is a kids game. They tried to keep it kind of simplistic for kids. I get why, but they did that, and it kind of harms it a lot of the time because of how neutered the movies are. It's a horrible shame, in my opinion, to see what they did with this game and with these movies adaptation-wise. But the open worlds, you have like 20 planets you can visit, and they are completely open. Like, it's huge. Almost all of these are humongous. Some are varying in size, like Kamino isn't as big as something like Tatooine. Tatooine and Naboo are fucking humongous, dude. Like, humongous. Now, something like Hoth that would have been cool to walk around in the snow and stuff is really just the base, like the Rebel base. That's really all you have there, but it's still pretty large. A lot of different tunnels to go down, a lot of Kyber crystals to find. Some of the maps will only have like 7 Kyber crystals. Some will have like 40. You know, it's crazy. It's really crazy how big some of these maps can be. But again, like Tatooine, dude, Tatooine is divided into like 3 different areas, like Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, and like, what's the other one? Junlin Wastelands or something? Dude, it's huge. It's absolutely enormous. Like, you can get lost walking around Tatooine, which is fair because it's a desert planet. It makes sense. But then you have the issue of repetitive planets. And I understand why they're in the game because of the cutscenes and the adaptations of 9 movies. I understand some of these are going to be kind of copycats. You're going to have, 2 snow planets. You're going to have like 3 desert planets, that kind of thing. Jakku is a knockoff Tatooine as far as I'm concerned, and it's only in this game because fucking Rey is in the game. That's what it is. It is. But Tatooine is humongous. Jakku's decently sized, but Tatooine, you can get fucking lost with all the canyons and the mountains and shit. It's huge. It's huge, and I want to give the developers credit, because I know they were on a time crunch, because every fucking loser on the planet is going to tell you that the game is good because of the time crunch thing. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I understand. I understand that. I know the amount of effort that had to have gone into this game are things that I will never understand. But let me tell you, the graphics, the mountaintops, everything, the skybox, everything is fucking beautiful in the game. It is truly shockingly beautiful. Like, it is some of the most beautiful Lego stuff I've ever seen. And I love, and I am very nostalgic about these original games. Everything up to number 3, which I haven't even completed. But the original 2 games I'm very, very, very in love with, if you will. And the graphics in this game are incredible. But trying to mix that with this new combat system they have of like a third-person shooter thing, it's rough, man. And on top of that, I have a drift issue on my controller, my Joy-Cons on my actual Switch, that the left Joy-Con, for whatever reason, keeps drifting to the side. Do you know how many fucking times I've climbed to the top of something and fell off because of this bullshit? Nintendo, what the hell? Is there any kind of fix that somebody can give me a recommendation on that I can get a new... Like, I know you can get the new Switch controllers and stuff, but is there any way that I can actually fix the Joy-Con that I have that keeps drifting? I've tried everything. Recalibrating like 3 or 4 times, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and it's sad, but it doesn't work. But this game is amazing when it comes to the visuals, when it comes to the world, when it comes to, even to me sometimes, not always, but the flying around in space. Because to go from planet to planet, you don't just bring up your weird RPG menu thing on the little thing from Phantom Menace. If you were a kid, back when Phantom Menace came out in 1999, you had like the little toys you could get of like, it was like the little circle thing that they communicate with each other. It's kind of like a hologram thing. You have a hologram menu in the game, where you can bring up where you want to go on the space battles. If you unlock a character, you have to buy them through this menu. If you want to revisit episodes that you played, the missions and whatever, you can go through that in this menu. If you get unlockables, like baguette lightsabers, let's say, or like mumble mode, which was a horrible addition. That's another story, because that was completely tacked on as an afterthought, and it was awful. It was a horrible version of mumbling, like the original games. They didn't talk, they just mumbled. Mumble mode was abysmal in this. But if you want to turn any of these functions on and off that affect how the world plays, like cantina music playing all the time everywhere you go, you have to go in this menu to do that. It took me probably about an hour or two of playing this game to really get used to using that menu, and it's a little bit because of the drift on my controller, and a little bit because that menu has never been in Star Wars games ever for LEGO, and it's kind of complicated at first. It takes a little time to understand what you're looking at, and when you go back to complete missions in the game, of movies and whatever, it takes a little bit more of understanding of what these icons on the missions mean to understand what you have to do. It takes a little time. It is an RPG, so people who are familiar with like Skyrim, Oblivion, anything like that, you probably know immediately you have to take some time to really get to know these things. And again, I think I played for like 30 or 35, 40 hours to get the 75% that I got. It was a long-ass game. I've been playing this, again, since I picked it back up and finished the movies and started doing all the open-world Kyber Crystal exploration stuff all over these open worlds. I really wanted to give the game a chance like I did with the Saints Row reboot, which I hated the story there too. It's a common issue with modern games, but the open world on Saints Row was beautiful. I loved it. I thought it was so good on that reboot, and it was so wasted on such a piece of shit SJW garbage fest. But that's not the problem here. The problem here is that there's so much to do, it's so massive and expansive, and yet at the same time, it feels hollow. It feels kind of hollow, which is a shame. Those RPG elements of walking around talking to people, getting side quests because of these civilians you talk to and communicate with, I loved that element. Frankly, I said this kind of, I think, briefly in my Star Wars Outlaws reaction video talking about the gameplay that came out with. Even though there's a big controversy surrounding that game, I think LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga would have been better if we had not done the adaptations of the movies and had just done its own game. Maybe they can do this with the sequel. Done its own game, kind of like Star Wars Outlaws, make their own story, make their own world and everything, make it as expansive as it is, have these other huge open world planets and everything that they did here, which was a huge, huge thing that they did well here. Let's do all of those things that Outlaws is going to try to do as an open world game in the next LEGO Star Wars. Let's try that, because I think that would have worked better than adapting these movies, trying to rush through those movies, and that's a big thing too. They are rushed, dude. So many details in the story are skipped over. So many. And it's a shame, because the adaptations we got of those movies are horrible. They're horrible. The humor, the jokes that I wanted to reference too, they're even worse. And when I say they're bad, like, I don't think I can explain to you enough how bad they truly are. The jokes are awful outside of the open world. When we're talking about missions, adapting the movies into missions and stuff, the jokes and humor and the constant meme focus is so obnoxious, dude. They're always talking about sand if fucking Anakin is on the screen. It's annoying. Please stop. Please stop doing that. That stuff gets on my nerves. It just gets on my nerves. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. With all that being said, though, the actual open world NPC stuff, like the jokes they make about being video game characters and doing the different things they do, that stuff sometimes, more frequently than anything else in the game, actually made me chuckle. Made me laugh a little bit because of how much... It wasn't just cute, it was actually well written sometimes. And I feel like it's a whole different writing team writing those NPC open world things versus the people who were put on the team to adapt the fucking movies, because the movie adaptations... The jokes are awful. I think I laughed at one. Out of all 9 movies, I laughed at one joke. A real quick, goofy, I think it was Empire Strikes Back joke. And that was it. But everything else adapted in here, the jokes they made and everything are just horrible. Don't even get me started on the Darth Maul resurrection scene. Not like the one from Rebels, or from Clone Wars. But like in Phantom Menace when he gets cut in half, the way they handle that scene is shocking, to say the least, because of how insanely stupid it is. The defense for this game that asshats on the internet keep using is that it's a kid's game, bro. Stop taking it so serious because it's a kid's game, bro. Well, you know what else were kids' games? This. Everything that preceded this. And yet, I love all of them. A lot. Even Force Awakens was really good, in my opinion, for the 3DS of all things. Why is the 3DS version better than something on a big platform game like this? Why? Answer me that, asshat. That's what I'd like to know. The defense of constantly saying everything is a kid's show or a kid's game. Shut the fuck up. Stop saying that. Why is that an actual defense for anything? There are really well-written movies for kids, like Home Alone. Or like, what else could I even use? Star Wars? You know, the original trilogy, the movies? Are you fucking kidding me? Stop saying that shit. It's not an excuse. Stop using that as your excuse. Harry Potter is kind of started for kids in the first couple of books, and it was great. It was really great. I think I've read the first book like 4 or 5 times. I haven't read the rest of them really, but I've read part 2 at least once. I think I read Prisoner of Azkaban once. But stop using that excuse. It's fucking dumb. It makes you look dumb. It just proves you're not a real fan if you're using that excuse most of the time. Or you're an adult who doesn't understand the issue at hand and why people are mad over that game, the new game, versus something like this that's a classic. A total classic. Everybody agreed when this came out it was a classic. I even have it on Game Boy Advance, dude. That's how classic this was. The writing is rough, is what I boil it all down to for the adaptation. But again, the open world stuff, it's beautiful, it's fun to explore. I had a good time exploring it. I could see other people saying it's boring and hollow, and I even said that kind of myself because it's kind of empty. My biggest issue with these open worlds is that unless you're on a side quest, you will never encounter some rando showing up with a lightsaber to fight you. You'll never have that. You might have a random battle droid see you and be like, hey, over there, roger, roger, and then he comes after you. That's all you'll ever see. And that's only if it's initiated in a certain area of each open world, but even most open worlds, like maybe 2 of them of the entire map, have an actual threat that shows up or is typically lingering there. Otherwise, not really. Otherwise, not really. But then there are maps like the Jedi Academy that I loved going to on Coruscant and just exploring and walking around this place, going around the library and stuff at the Jedi Academy. Going to the Jedi Council room where Yoda and Mace Windu are chilling with whatever the big-headed dude is. Not me, I have a big head, but the other guy, the one guy. I can't remember his name right now. Something Moondai? I can't remember his name. But there is so much to complain about with this game. It's very half-baked, in my opinion. The visuals of it are incredible. They're next to none when it comes to LEGO games anywhere. They are. But the platforming elements, the puzzle elements, all of that, I love it way more on the original games. I know the original games have a fixed camera angle for the original traditional platformer thing they're going for, and I think it works better than something like this with the big open world, the third-person camera thing. Let's talk about that combat system they changed up. I talked about it briefly. Lightsabers aren't nearly effective the way they used to be. Whether it be in Disney movies when somebody can get cut across the fucking face like Kylo Ren and not get their brain sliced in half when that happens, or Finn getting cut up his spine and not going paralyzed the rest of his life. That kind of thing doesn't happen. And it's been a problem, and it's kind of like in here too. In the OG game, I almost never wanted to use blasters. They were effective for what they were, but I always wanted to use lightsabers. Same thing with the second game. Most of the games I focus on using a lightsaber because I love Jedi stuff and I love Sith stuff. This game, Skywalker Saga, lightsabers are next to not effective when it comes to like destroying things in your environment. When it comes to fighting somebody, they're super powerful. Same thing with the bounty hunter guns and stuff when you use that later on in the game too, as you unlock those characters. The combat system to me is a fucking mess. Trying to use third-person shooter elements is never good in something like this, in my opinion. And it's fairly close to being similar to what Force Awakens had. From what I remember of the combat there, I think they'd started this new third-person thing there, and then they really did it here. I don't like it. I think it feels off. I don't know, it feels off, but a lot of it is because the bosses in the game are so easy. Completely so easy that, like, you can beat anybody. Super easy. A baby could have the controller sitting in front of them and just accidentally keep smacking the controller and fucking kill bosses, dude. It's not hard at all. And if you know how to use your right trigger button on the Switch, RZ I think is what it's called. If you know how to use that, you can just keep throwing your lightsaber all the time and keeping your distance, and you will beat pretty much every boss. Pretty much all the bosses have the same formatting of how they fight, and even the animations for how they dance at the beginning of a fight and introduce themselves in a fight are the same thing. They're just reskinned constantly. It's just annoying. It's really, really annoying to me. Again, I say the word half-baked because it is, you know? The sound design in the game is mostly good. It kind of depends on what we're talking about. Space flight is a little... it can be good. It can be very, very fucked up, like when you have to do races, which I quit the races real quick. I was not a fan of that. You can race in space, and you do races on different open worlds and stuff. That can be pretty solid too, but the races in a spaceship, dude, are so tricky because I don't understand if I'm supposed to go on like a certain path to collect these big green circles in space, or do I have to like just collect them as fast as I can, which you would assume you could come up with your own path and keep doing that. Maybe they're trying to say that you can get your own path, but half the time with how buggy the game is, you spawn facing away from those things. That happens a lot. The pod racing game, for example, one of the missions in Phantom Menace, isn't, to me, as good as it was in the original LEGO Star Wars game. I feel like the driving there was better, a little bit more hectic, and it's hectic here, but to me it moves too fast and the controlling scheme doesn't work as well. My drifty Joy-Con can be a problem there too, not gonna lie to you. It's not entirely LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga's fault, but still. I'm gonna take a taste of my drink really quick. But the sound design can be pretty cool, especially in that pod racing scene. It's good for what it is, but sometimes things kind of like loop over each other, which gets annoying to me, personally. Another issue with that sound design, too, is the music. A lot of the time, to me, the music feels, well, half-baked. It's John Williams. It's stuff from the newer films as well. But a lot of the time, I just feel like it doesn't... Some maps and some open worlds that can have that nice, majestic feeling to it. In some, I just don't think it fits. I don't know really some examples off the top of my head, but sometimes it just really, it didn't click for me, like the hub world does on like episode, or game 1 and game 2 from back in the day. I could walk around Dexter Jettster's diner forever in the original game, and outside of it, and love that a lot. I think it's on Coruscant, but I love that a whole lot. The music in the actual missions that you replay over and over again in the story game, or game story, I don't know. All of that, the Utapau world. The music there is just great. I love all of it. Skywalker Saga doesn't land there. I don't know why. I don't really understand how, because of the great John Williams music, but for some reason it just doesn't for me, and I can't figure it out. Now, what else do I want to talk about here? Let's talk about the character roster I discussed briefly. There are an advertised 380 characters in this game. I think I unlocked like 340 of them, 370 of them, 50, something like that. I unlocked most of them, I would say. And you can upgrade these characters. They have all these different classes, like Jedi, Sith, Villain, Astromech Droid, Protocol Droid. Yeah, they break it down to all of that too. And I fucking hate it. Because they cheated you. They cheated you a lot. Because they would say, like, this is the Skywalker Saga. It's focused on 9 movies. Okay. Yeah, you can get the really cool ones like Jango Fett, who I think plays better than Boba Fett. But why is the bounty hunter considered different from, like, Han Solo and the Scoundrels and stuff? I understand that Han Solo wasn't a bounty hunter, but, like, they play the same way. All of these reskins and these different classes almost always play the same. A droid doesn't play the same. But the droids were changed too. Back in the old games, C-3PO can't punch. Now he can split himself in half to go through really tiny doorways like it's fucking Willy Wonka. Then you have like R2-D2 who can't fly, but he can jump twice. Like double jump. What? And he can electrocute people. They changed up how these characters play. I'm not complaining about that part, but just saying what they changed it for. Fuck that, it's stupid. Then you have like the Jedi, again, trying to destroy a fucking box in front of you. You're going to hit that thing at least 5 times. 4 and 5 times to be able to destroy a fucking box. Like a random crate. Not to collect something, but just a crate on the side of the road. Or the side of the map, the open world. You're going to be hitting that thing 4 and 5 times to try to crack the thing open, to get the studs out of it. And everything's expensive in the game, too. It's one of those games with the massive amount of multipliers that all can be put into one. By the time I ended this game, I had 33 billion studs. Yeah. 33 billion studs. And if I had completed the game, like everybody else was trying to do with hitting the 100%, which would take you like 80 hours to do it, if you try to do that, I feel like it's very obvious that you would end with billions and billions of studs and have nothing to buy with it, which is a complaint in a lot of RPGs. It doesn't really matter to me. It was nice to be able to have enough money, whereas, right recently, like I said, when I was playing Part 2 here, I really wanted the ghost versions of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda and Anakin Skywalker, and I don't think I ever got them by the time I finished completing this game to what I wanted to complete it before, because I just didn't have the money, and I didn't want to go back and keep playing them to try to get, like, 20,000 studs a mission until I could finally afford fucking, a couple of ghosts that cost 1,200 studs. Or, not 1,200, 1.2 million studs. I didn't want to do that. Whereas in this game, I remember, like, the most expensive thing being, like, a 1 million stud invincibility thing, which was great. I loved that. Still use it to this day when I replay that game. There aren't really any kind of abilities like invincibility in this Skywalker Saga game. which is understandable. It's super easy, you don't need it. I wish it mumbled. I wish there was mumbling that wasn't just a mumble mode that is obnoxious and cuts into each other. It feels like it's horribly edited together, you know? Even the animations and the comedy have to have the physicality and the voices to be able to make the jokes that they thought were funny work. If you just did mumble mode, the jokes don't land at all because most of it they have to tell you everything. They can't show you like the humor in this game did, which is annoying. I don't remember if there's anything else. Oh yeah, with the character roster thing. Some of those, let's say like 60%. 60% of the 370 odd character roster are people you don't fucking care about. There'll be variations of clone troopers. We're talking like you might have like 8 or 9 or 10 different types of clone troopers that you have variations. You have to buy of every single one of them as different costumes or different weapons they have. That got old so quick. Like so quick. And then you have random asshats that are just on the side of the road that you've never heard of, probably don't even exist in Star Wars canon at all. Not somebody like Mon Mothma, but like somebody else. Not Tarkin. We're talking about somebody else. Some clown, like a random alien that you could buy in this. It's not even people like Babu Frick from Rise of Skywalker, the little creepy weirdo that's like, hey, it's the voice actress, I believe, who played Phil and Lil on Rugrats, if I remember correctly. It's not like Babu Frick. It's like genuinely people that just are random NPCs that they want you to buy. Why the fuck are we getting stuff like that? Why not like a Saj Ventress or like, you know, who else? Like, what's the blue bounty hunter guy from Clone Wars? I cannot remember his name to save my life. One of my favorites, and I cannot remember his damn name. But you know what I mean. Like, why are we not getting people like that? You say it's because it's the Skywalker Saga, focused on 9 of the movies. I would rather have Jen fucking Erso than have random bald guy over here. You know, I really would. That's just my opinion on it. Maybe it's a controversial opinion, but I don't think it is. I see it listed all the time. That's another thing, too. When this game came out, the amount of shilling for this game and people trying to justify and basically beg the internet to believe them that they were okay with the hole they burnt in their fucking wallet buying this. I bought it for $60. Everybody else was buying the like special edition of it for like $70, which is crazy to me. Now the average pricing on games because of that shit is $70, which is also fucking nuts. I'm not paying $70 for a brand new game. That's insane. Because if you buy a new console for like $500, now you're really paying, with taxes, over $600 just to have a game. Just one game to go with your console if it's not a bundle pack that you bought. Which is crazy. People need to stop justifying that and trying to feed into it. Games do not need to cost $70. I keep understanding people try to use the inflation argument. You're fucking wrong. $60 is more than sufficient to afford these things. And if something like Saints Row Reboot that could have been guaranteed money, that basically at first was guaranteed money, if it had not thrown out its fan base out the window, the people who had made it a popular thing to begin with, they could have made the money back easily. Easily. Same thing here. Same thing applies here. This game is so half-baked, and I hate using that phrase. I don't really even like that phrase, but it's justified here because it's such a half-and-half mess of a wonderful open world, the wonderful graphics, the music can be okay here and there, mixed with things that I love. These characters that I love. I love how we have like 4 and 5 variations of Anakin Skywalker, including an evil Anakin Skywalker that counts as a Sith. By the way, why is Snoke listed as a Sith? I understand he's a clone, but why? He doesn't even have a lightsaber in the game. He just barely has Force things. He just walks around quoting himself. Snoke is like the worst character in the game, honestly. Anyway, that's just a small nitpick. But this is such an annoying game because of the case we're dealing with here. Of a game that people who put so much time and effort into making this, to building it, did an incredible job with the worlds, with the landscapes, the collectibles, all of that stuff. Even the puzzles that can be kind of easy because it's a kid's game. And I understand the puzzles being easy because of that. Those things even being so wacky that they have like 700 puzzles, I think is what the menu said. I think 710 puzzles? Maybe more than that, something like that. It's too big. It's too big, and it feels too hollow sometimes. Depending on the planet we're talking about, I think it's too hollow. Then you have some places where it's just nice to sit on the beach side of Kashyyyk and watch a bunch of Chewbacca's walk around. I like that. It's kind of nice sometimes, depending on what map we're talking about. And that's another thing. The prequel maps and the original trilogy maps, I love. I really love. But then we have like these sequel trilogy maps that, again, sometimes they're just the same thing copy and pasted, like Jakku basically being knockoff Tatooine. But those maps aren't even that fun to like experience and watch and walk around in. Even down to Maz Kanata's whatever that is, castle, I don't know what to call it. Even something like that's not as cool as what we saw in here. By the way, Gray Griffin, who played Mandy on Billy and Mandy, plays Maz Kanata in this game, which was cool. They have a lot of the voice actors from the original Clone Wars show coming back, like James Arnold Taylor is coming back to play Obi-Wan Kenobi, which was really nice. I like that too. This is such a mess of a game, and I hate to be that guy, but I feel like it's more common now. Now that the hype has died down, now that people are really understanding that they wasted money on something like this, and I feel like I wasted money on it too, buying it for $60 for Switch when it came out. The fact that people are coming to terms with that, and understanding it, and even going back to play things like the original games and Complete Saga, people are really understanding how much we missed out on and how much was so lame about this game. I think that's the biggest thing about it. It's just lame. The marketing push, the obsession with shills online talking about how much they loved this game and ate it up. It's your typical Disney Star Wars soy boy fanboy. I don't even like to call them a fanboy. They're a wannabe fanboy. They typically love the sequel trilogy, and I like a couple of those movies too, but they're typically people who think they are like the best, and Rey is like the best character ever, and they love Reylo shit. You're not what Star Wars was. You're not a fan of what Star Wars was. That's what I believe. Call it gatekeeping, but fuck you, it's true. That's the problem. Truth. Anyway, Skywalker Saga. Such a mess. If you can get this for like $30, I think it would be worth the $30. But it ain't worth 35. It ain't worth 40, all the way up to 70. It ain't worth any of that. If you can get it for like $30, that would be the best price ever to pay for this, especially if you're the type who wants to get a bang for your buck, because there's so much to do in here. Again, there's easily like 80 hours of content in this, maybe 70, somewhere in there. There's so much to do in here that it makes me want to get more into the RPG elements of some other games, like Skyrim, like Fallout 3, like Oblivion, that I've never even played for that matter. Those other two games I have, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. I never got far in them, though, because I wasn't about the exploration stuff. The older I'm getting, the more I appreciate that and want to do more exploring in games. So I'm kind of taking away from this in a good way. That's it. But when it comes to LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, I don't think there was anything else I wanted to discuss. I think I pretty much covered everything for like 50 minutes of reviewing this, but it's a shame that it turned out to be what it was. I wanted to love it. I really did, and when it came out, I was so excited. When I had first heard about it, like the couple of weeks before it came out, I was looking forward to this so much because of my love of Part 2 and Complete Saga, and I even bought LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, because of the release of this game. Pretty sure I bought it either before or after, somewhere in that ballpark. But I even stopped playing this because of how bad it was, and went back to complete original trilogy because of how great it was. Because I wanted something better, and I knew what I had back in the day was better than whatever this is supposed to be. But again, whoever created this, LucasArts, whatever, if you're going to make a sequel to this, don't do the spin-off movies, don't do Mandalorian. Those are DLC characters, don't even speak in the game, by the way, which is hilarious. Don't do all that. Just do like an open-world LEGO game. That's what you really, really did well here, and I think it would benefit you so much if you did something like that. But not like the Disney Channel LEGO Star Wars cartoons and stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do your own original story. Have its dark moments. Don't just fill it with nothing but shit humor that's nothing close to the humor of these old games. Don't do it. Make your own story for this, and I guarantee you that people would like it a lot more. I really do. And I feel like this will taint the LEGO Star Wars world for a long time, because people are really coming around over the last probably 5-6 months, after this being out for over a year now. They're really coming around to how much they hate this, how much they feel like they wasted money on this. And again, it all starts with when you open up the menu of the game and you hear, I want someone to put me in my place. Or whatever she's saying, I want someone to show me my place, or whatever Rey is saying. That sounds like a hilarious sexist moment. Anyway, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, I think I'm pretty much done with everything I wanted to say. Everything from the complicated menus to the mess of adaptation of the movies that we've seen a couple of times now, maybe that's why they tried to do something different, but it's still fucking bad, I don't care what you say. Between that and the really beautiful graphics, it's a mess. And if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I think I would give Skywalker Saga about a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not really as fun to play as the original games, which I think is a big issue, because if you're going to play this for 70, 80 hours, it needs to be fun to play. It's really not. The bosses are too easy, as I said. Even if there was a little bit of a challenge there, I feel like it would have been better. Or even to have the hub worlds have some kind of threat that comes to you, or do like back in the day, we had the bar fights in the cantina at like Mos Eisley. Or like in the Dexter Jetster Coruscant planet, fights where the Jedi and the Sith would just fight in the original game out of nowhere outside. They just did not like each other out of reputation. That stuff was so much fun, and this has none of it. It has none of it in here, which is so shameful, in my opinion. For a beautiful, beautiful game and such an open world game, this is so hollow in so many ways. I wanted to love it, but I just don't. I don't. Even by the time I got to the 75% of the game last night, I just don't love it. I had a good time exploring things, but that only goes so far, and eventually that started getting boring too and made me decide I didn't want 100% it. Because I didn't think I wanted to keep looking at it, honestly. Anyway, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, 3 out of 5 stars for me. That's all I can be willing to give it. It's half and half. Very half and half. Depending on what you like, you might not like anything I talked about, like the big open expansive worlds and all of that. That might not even appeal to you, and then you hate the story missions too, and you probably think it's even worse than I think it is, but I think it has its benefits. It has some. Very slim, but some. Overall, not a complete loss, but pretty damn close, if I'm being honest with you. I play games for stories. Environments and worlds can be cool too, but I play them for stories, and for memories, and for weapons and gameplay, that kind of thing. But I put story above all of those. I don't even need good characters as long as I have a good tale, and I think that those two kind of twine together, but this doesn't have any of that, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Skywalker Saga, what are your thoughts? Put them down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts about this fucking mess of a game. Thank you all for watching. God bless you guys. Sorry for such a rambly video. I'm sorry for doing this with this video and with my Dragon Ball Super video. But obviously they're very different reviews. But I had so much to say about both as a longtime fan of both that I had to. Anyway, thank you all for watching again. God bless you guys. I hope that the future of LEGO Star Wars, if we ever get another one after like them developing this for like 5 years or 6 years or something like that, some kind of crazy number, I hope we get something better, and I hope we get something kind of more original than something like this ever again, because this was a bad idea, in my opinion. It has some good ideas, some good concepts in the idea in the boardroom meetings they had, but man, is it rough. Especially that new combat system that is pointless because of how easy everything is. There is no difficulty setting, by the way, either. Thank you guys. God bless you all. Put your thoughts and comments down below, and goodbye.